remember the last time you completed your to-do list? No? Well, you're definitely not alone. Why is it that we can continuously work for hours, days, or even weeks, but still not make a dent in our list of tasks? Is there anything we can do to actually get things done, achieve that elusive work-life balance, and avoid burnout? In today's video, we uncover why it's physically impossible to complete your to-do list in its current state, and I give you a 5-step time management system to help you manage your crazy workload and finally check off that last box. Hi everyone, I'm Caitlin and this is Twig. At Twig, we chat all things personal development with videos to help you achieve more success but with less stress. So if that sounds like something that you need a bit of help with, then please subscribe to my channel and tap the notification bell to be one of the first to find out when my next video goes live. When you're struggling with a crazy workload, it's easy to feel overwhelmed and go into panic mode. It can become hard to even know where to start, and as more and more tasks are thrown your way throughout the day, the situation only compounds. Our never-ending pursuit to finally check that last box, or sometimes even the first box, can seriously negatively impact our physical and mental well-being, causing burnout, anxiety and stress. So how do we break out of this toxic situation of working ourselves into the ground and getting nowhere? Before I answer those questions, I'm first just going to do a quick disclaimer. We can be 100% dedicated to improving our personal working practices and becoming a more and more efficient worker. But if you're working in a company or an environment with a toxic working culture where the amount of work expected of you is just not realistic, no amount of time management tips or productivity technique will solve the issue, because you are not the issue. So just know that and don't put too much pressure on yourself. This video is for people who are struggling to manage a heavy but achievable workload, not a workload that is setting you up for failure from the start. So with that out of the way, the process that I discovered works best for me to manage my workload and stop feeling overwhelmed has 5 steps. Filter, record, prioritise, schedule and do. If you're anything like me, the reason that it's impossible to complete your to-do list is probably because you're only doing 2 of these steps, record and do. You're writing your to-do list down, recording your tasks, and you're trying to do the task by working down the list from top to bottom. You might be doing a bit of prioritising by getting the most urgent things done first, but the filtering and scheduling might be partly or completely missing, and that means that the following problems arise. Tasks are ignored until they become urgent, which means you have to rush through them and they might not be completed to the best of your ability, or you end up working over your hours to get it done. Next, the small but important admin tasks fall by the wayside, and so things become less and less organised, which makes it more difficult to get urgent tasks done. Next, you waste chunks of time trying to decide which tasks to do next, which leaves room for procrastination to take hold, which only makes the situation worse. If you're in a management position, then you'll start doing the tasks yourself rather than delegating them to junior employees. And that's because you just don't have the time to explain to them how to do it right. All of these issues add up and mean that you're constantly firefighting. You're in panic mode and work becomes a constant stress. And that's because your to-do list is physically impossible with the way that you're currently working. If this all sounds way too familiar, then here's how to implement my 5-step system on how to manage your workload and restore some order to your day. Step 1. Filter. This step is the most important, but one of the hardest to do sometimes. It's all about boundaries and being able to say no. All too often, we feel obliged to take on more and more work because we're worried about coming across as difficult or uncooperative. We just say yes to everything without considering when we're actually going to get the task done or if we've even got time in the first place, which means we get overloaded and become overwhelmed. And before we know it, our to-do list is just completely unachievable. So we either miss deadlines or work late to get it done. But ask yourself this: what is worse? Saying no to one task so that you can get everything that you've already got completed to the best of your ability and on time, or saying yes to everything, missing deadlines, producing lower quality work, and eventually burning out? If you're struggling with setting boundaries at work, then try saying something like this the next time you get asked to do something that you've not got the time to do. I would love the opportunity to do this task, but because of tasks X, Y, and Z, I just don't have the capacity to take that on right now. That gives the person a chance to reallocate some of your other tasks so that you can complete the new one, or give the new one to someone else. Most of the time, people aren't intentionally trying to give us more work than we can handle. They're just unaware of what's already on our plates. Letting them know that you are busy and cannot take on any new tasks is not being difficult. It's looking after yourself, and it's also keeping your boss or your clients happy by producing higher quality work with the tasks that you've already got. If you're self-employed or you don't have a boss to answer to, then try using the Eisenhower matrix. This is a 2x2 matrix that uses urgency and importance as a way to categorize tasks. If a task is both urgent and important, the matrix says to do this first. If a task is urgent but not important, then delegate it. If a task is important but not urgent, then schedule this to do it at a later date. If a task is not important and not urgent, don't do it. Get rid of it. It's not worth the time. Step 2. Record. Once you've filtered the incoming tasks into the tasks you're actually going to take on, you now need to record them. There's lots of ways of keeping track of your tasks, a to-do list being one of them. And for one-off tasks that can be easily completed and ticked off, a to-do list is perfect. But for ongoing project work that gets passed around different people and might end up coming back to you, sometimes it's easier to keep track of that in a spreadsheet. When I've been involved in project work in the past, I use a colour-coded spreadsheet to quickly show the status of that project. Red meant that I have an immediate action to complete on that project. Orange meant that the project is with me, but it doesn't need to be completed right away, so I can schedule that in for later. Yellow meant that the project was with someone else, but it stayed on my list for 2 reasons. The first reason is to remind myself that this project could come back to me, so that it wouldn't be a shock and mess up my schedule if it did. The second reason is so that I am able to chase the person that the project is with if I'm responsible for it and they've had it for too long. Light green meant up and coming work that needed to be on my radar but didn't need immediate actions. And dark green meant completed, the project is finished, but I wanted to keep a record for it just in case someone asked me what I'd done on it, because I've got a terrible memory and I needed to keep track. A system like this isn't always necessary, and depending on your personality type, some people might think that that's way over the top and not needed, but for me it was a lifesaver, so I'd encourage you to at least try it and see if it helps. Step 3. Prioritise. So once you've recorded your tasks, you can now prioritise them. So that can be as simple as putting a star next to each task that you need to get completed by the end of the day, or you can assign numbers to tasks that indicate the level of urgency and hence the level of priority. Whilst you're prioritising, it helps with the next step if you can put a time estimate next to each task of how long each task is likely to take you. Step 4. Schedule. Once you know your priorities and roughly how long each task is going to take, you can now schedule when you're actually going to do the work. Whilst you're scheduling, remember Parkinson's law, which states work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. This means that however long you assign to each task, the task will fill that time. I know that this is definitely true in my personal life, because if I gave myself a full day to get ready for a night out, I would use every minute of it. But if I only had half an hour, I could still get ready in that time. In a work setting, this means that if you give yourself 2 hours a day to do your emails, you'll spend 2 hours a day doing your emails, crafting perfectly worded responses to everybody. But your emails don't necessarily need to take that long. So give yourself a time limit for these, say half an hour a day, to free up more time to do the chunky tasks that need to be moved off your to-do list. It also really helps with scheduling to understand your working habits and which of your tasks are better suited to different times of day. Are you the type of person that likes to get the biggest, most difficult task out of the way first, so that then you've just got the easy tasks to get rid of in the afternoon? Or do you prefer to work up to the big task by completing the smaller tasks first, so that you can then really get into deep work and finish that chunky task? When we're scheduling our day, it's really easy to just look at our to-do list and schedule each task as and when throughout the day. But if we intentionally think about each individual task and the type of work that's needed for it, and when we're best suited to doing that type of work throughout the day, you can schedule your day around that, which will increase the likelihood of being able to complete that work to the best of your ability and on time. My favourite method of actually scheduling in my tasks throughout the day is time blocking, and I've mentioned this in a few of my previous videos, and time blocking is my favourite way to do this. My favourite way to plan my time is through time blocking. Using your time estimates for each task and your knowledge about your preferred way of working. Lay out your day in chunks. Each chunk is assigned specifically to getting one task done. The chunks don't have to be of equal length. One can be half an hour, one can be 10 minutes, one can be 2 hours, one can be 3 hours. But each chunk is solely dedicated to getting that one task done with no distractions and no interruptions, which means you'll be able to take more off your list. So the final step, step 5, do. So once you've filtered, recorded, prioritised and scheduled your work, it's now time to do. You can probably now see why just recording and doing the work make your to-do list impossible. It's because you're missing out the other steps that are vital to creating a work schedule that's organised, well thought out and actually doable. I did a full separate video on doing work and being as productive as possible. Just click the link up here. But here's a technique that I didn't mention in that video that I think could be really useful, especially if you struggle to stay focused. And it's called the Pomodoro technique. The Pomodoro technique is a productivity strategy that involves setting a timer for 25 minutes. In that 25 minutes, you complete a solid chunk of uninterrupted work. When the timer goes off at the end of the 25 minutes, you have a 5-minute break, and then you do another 25 minutes of solid work, and then have another 5-minute break. 25 minutes is long enough to make significant progress on a task, but not too long that you start to lose focus. After 4 to 5 cycles of this, you can take a longer break and then go back to the 25-minute, 5-minute split. If you'd like a separate video on the science behind the Pomodoro technique, then just let me know. Hopefully that 5-step time management system of filter, record, prioritize, schedule and do will really help to make your to-do list achievable so that you can improve your work-life balance and enjoy more of that downtime that is needed to recharge. Please let me know in the comments if you're going to try this or if you found it useful. Friday's video is going to be on toxic productivity, which might seem a bit strange with me doing videos on productivity and time management, but I think it's a really important topic to cover to make sure that we're looking after ourselves and stressing less, which is what Twig's all about. So if you enjoyed today's video, please subscribe to my channel, give this video a thumbs up and tap the notification bell to be notified when Friday's video goes live. Thank you so much for being here and I'll see you on Friday.